Hey guys, this is Will Thompson, and this is another episode of Willy T Sports coming at you. So glad you guys are tuning in. It's my favorite time of the year. This is March, and if you guys don't know, there's a big tournament that comes around this year. Oh yeah, March Madness. That's what it is. Best time of the year. 60 free games in like a 3-week span. Big tournament, one crown, and I can't wait. It's going to be a good year. It's been 2 years for us coming. I've been waiting for this day literally ever since we were shut down and had to go home last year because of COVID. And it's just very exciting. We're finally here. A lot of good teams. Going to preview all of that today alongside with MLB. Going to be a very fun, exciting season. Finally 162 games. So it's more of a legit, actual regular season instead of last year, which was just a 60-game spurt. And also going to start off today by showing you my favorite Play-Doh of last 2 weeks, and it is Damien Lillard.
Okay, Curry fakes, now drives, gets inside, high off the glass, in and out, won't go, rebound Lillard. 25 seconds remaining. Lillard has it poked away by Bazemore and keeps his dribble alive now. Lillard, step back three. Bang!
Splash, deep free, 4 to win against Warriors. Also, there's still 13
seconds remaining. He does it again.
He drew a charge for it. So, very impressive. So, he literally puts his body on the line for Portland, both offensively and defensively. He is just a true player. Unfortunately, he will probably not end up with an NBA ring, even though he deserves one. That is just because he is too loyal to a fault to Portland. However, you gotta love loyal players, and so I respect it. So even though he doesn't end up with the ring, most likely, you never know, he will still go down as one of the greatest players of all time. Now, into the juicy part of this show. Very glad you guys are here today and sticking with this because this is going to be fun. I'm going to first talk about my Final Four teams while also giving you guys some tips about other teams that I think have legit chances to make the Final Four as well. First, I'm going to start off with the number 1 overall seed in all of March Madness, Gonzaga. That is just a sigh of relief to all the other teams that have to play Gonzaga this year because it is just going to be tough for anyone in March Madness to beat Gonzaga this year. It's really almost a fight for second place. Okay, not really. Obviously, people could beat Gonzaga. They almost lost in their tournament final against BYU, but, I mean, Suggs and Kispert were just too much. By far the best team all year long. Number 1 most efficient offense. Top 10 efficiency defense, according to KenPom rankings, and probably one of the most deepest and just insanely good mix of veterans and good mix of freshmen, obviously one of the highest rated freshmen of all time, and Suggs. Going to be a top 5 pick this year in the NBA draft. Just going to be a very, very tough team to beat in March. Definitely have them coming out of their region. But you never know. They got some other good contenders that I'll touch on later in their region. Secondly, I'm going to start off with Florida State. I know it might be a bit of a surprise. You know, they're 4th seed. You know, I'm not just doing this because, like, oh, look at Willy T. Like, he's just trying to make some bold picks. But no, I actually truly believe they're a good veteran team. And they have a lot of depth. I mean, you look at it. They're in the top 10 offensive efficiency, which I think bodes very well in March Madness. And they have free scorers that are scoring the double figures. And that just shows only free scorers. You know, they're the 10th most top 10 efficiency in the country. So that just shows they're a very deep team. And they rebound the ball offensively at an insane clip. They get a lot of second chance buckets. They're going to be a hard out for anyone. I understand the ACC was a little weaker this year, but they did their part. I also think it bodes well with them because another team I'll touch on later, it is in the Michigan region, so it would be remiss to say that, wouldn't be fair for them to say they have no Final Four chance. They definitely do. They have a lot of good players in Dickinson, Wagner, and Mike Smith's a great facilitator. It's just going to hurt them quite a bit without Isaiah Livers. You know, wish the best for his health, and hopefully he could get back on the floor soon, but without him, I feel like it's going to be tough, and I feel like Florida State bodes well in this region. And I really think they're going to come out of it. And next team I'm going to start off talking about is Ohio State in the Baylor region. I think Ohio State will come out of this region. I think they showed everyone how impressive they were this year. first starting off, they went undefeated in non-conference play. They started off amazing in Big Ten conference play, even with tough losses to Northwestern and Minnesota to start the year. Both close losses. Actually, Minnesota, they actually beat them by a decent amount. But Northwestern, they ended up losing by 1. They lost a couple close games to Purdue. But at the end of the year, they really showed their true colors. They ended up beating Iowa at Iowa. They beat Illinois at Illinois. They beat Michigan in the tournament. And even though they struggled down the stretch of the regular season, they ended up having a great Big Ten tournament where they almost flew 3 games in a row. But they had the poise and resilience to fight back and ended up winning huge games down the stretch against Purdue in overtime, against Michigan by 1 late, against Minnesota late. And they forced Illinois down by 17 at one point in the first half, coming all the way back to force it to overtime. Like, that is very impressive. Gotta love Dwayne Washington's play. I think you gotta expect him to have another amazing March Madness, similar to the likes of Steph Curry. I am saying that. Steph Curry, Kemba Walker, and Carson Edwards. Okay, I understand those are probably 3 of the best guard plays in March Madness in our lifetime, in my lifetime. But I literally think he's literally got it in him, and he is that Mamba mentality. Again, he is Derek Fisher's nephew, so who played with Kobe Bryant. So I think that's where he gets the Mamba mentality from. Finally, my Final Four team that I'm going to pick this year is Illinois. Illinois is not shown really until the very end of the year what they're capable of. They kind of struggled to start the year. They played a close game against Ohio, which again, Ohio's a tough team, tough non-Power 5 team, and they really just looked really bad in the second half against Baylor. And they had some losses earlier on, in some games they did end up winning, like Indiana in overtime, Nebraska in overtime, where they just did not look that great. But the final, months and a half of the season, they've looked as good, if not the best team in the country. I mean, Ayo Dosunmu is just on another level right now. He just has that huge Mamba mentality that I just love talking about, which I think is huge. It's something you really need in March. And he's got that. You got Kofi Cockburn down low, who is just an absolute tank. He is just a stud. One thing that worries me about Illinois is really just Kofi late game situations. It's kind of like a hack-a-shack situation. I mean, his free throw shooting is not good, to put it lightly. I mean, honestly, if you're an Illinois fan and you see them late, honestly, and he's at the free throw line, literally the best you could expect is just 1 or 2. But I mean, they just have an insane lineup. Trent Frazier, Ida Miller, great shooter. Kubelo could do a lot of things. Georgie could provide a lot of minutes. Monte Williams is a solid player. I'm actually going to go on and on. This Illinois team is special, and they are peaking at the right time. And that's why I'll have them going to my Final Four. Now, other teams that you guys could definitely help out that you guys might want to include for maybe making them go to the Final Four in your bracket, which, I would not be against because I think these teams are just right there as well and could easily make it. And first, I'm going to start off by mentioning Alabama. Alabama, I've never really been high on this whole year. Granted, they're in the SEC, so I probably have not watched them play as much as I would have liked. But I watched them in the tournament, especially the last 2 games of the SEC tournament. They didn't end up winning the tournament, but they kind of squeaked out close wins against, solid opponents, teams that are in the NCAA tournament. But I think they should have looked better and proven more. And another thing that just worries me is SEC has a really down year. I mean, Kentucky is supposed to be one of the premier blue bloods in all of college basketball. Terrible. So it's just easy win after easy win. Anyone who plays Kentucky this year, I mean, they were horrendous. And I mean, they went 7-4 in non-conference play. I mean, I understand they lost to some decent teams. Oklahoma, who's an 8 seed, they lost to Western Kentucky, who was in their conference's final. I understand they lost to Clemson too, but I mean, end of the day, 7-4 is not good at all. So to go 21-2 in conference play, that's not as impressive to me if you went to 7-4 in non-conference play, because you know what that shows me? It's wow, maybe your conference just isn't that good. So I don't know. Bama definitely is a good team. They definitely could come out of the Michigan region, because I would like to think I might have a better chance than Michigan with Livers out. So they might have be the highest, quote unquote seed. Healthy seed in their region, so they definitely can make the tournament, but might make the Final Four. But I don't know, they have to prove more to me, in my opinion, and we'll see what they do this tournament. Another team is obviously Michigan, as I mentioned previously, as I touched on, is they're a very good team, and they still have 1 seed in the region, even without arguably the best player. It's hard to count them out, and Juwan Howard's just having an insane coaching year. Maybe he'll win National Coach of the Year, and can't really argue against that. He's had his team clicking, and all year they've kind of struggled as of late. Though they lost to Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament, they got smoked by Illinois, lost to Michigan State. They just don't seem to be peaking at the right time. They might have peaked a bit too early, but you never know. If they go back, revert to how they played early in the year, you never know. Another team is Iowa, and this is in Gonzaga's region. If they were in another region, I might have them in the Final Four. It's just quite unfortunate they're playing in Gonzaga's region, and as I mentioned previously, good luck to anyone who plays them this tournament. That's just how good they are, and I've watched them play a bunch. But if anyone who could keep up with Gonzaga's offense, it would be Iowa, who has the second most efficient offense in the country. Really thing that hurts them and struggles the most is their defense. However, they have looked a lot better as of late, and they have just an insane bunch of shooters, plethora of shooters, so do not count them out. Another team I'd mention has a good chance to make the Final Four is Baylor. They look like the number 2 team all year long, and they are rightfully so the number 1 seed in their region. The one thing that just worries me is that ever since they were sidelined for 2.5 weeks due to COVID, they have not came back and looked nearly the same. I mean, they didn't win the Big 12 championship. They lost to Kansas, which, those are only 2 losses. Those are only 2 losses of the year, so, that's not bad at all. But they also almost lost to Iowa State, which is, one of the worst teams in the country, and they ended up winning by, 1, and they just have not looked as good. Still, best 3-point shooting team in the country, and just a plethora of talent. Damien Mitchell, so you just cannot count them out, and I do think they definitely have a good chance to make the Final Four. Finally, another team I think has a chance is Houston. Houston, I've not had the opportunity to watch them as much as I would like. However, I know people might say they're not in the best conference, which is true, but they've still been dominant all year long, so it's hard to really hate on them, especially because, they're a great team, top 10 in the Ken Palm rankings, so, very efficient team, and we'll see. They could definitely make a run. I just don't know if they match up great with Illinois in their region. Now, that is done for March Madness talk today. Hope you guys gained a lot of knowledge from me, hope, to fill out your March Madness brackets this year, which you never know. Maybe you'll get the perfect brackets. It's only 60 free. You only need to pick 60 free games, guys. I don't know why everyone's fussing about it. You just get 60 free games correct, you get $1 billion from Warren Buffett. It's that easy, I've almost done it every year. I've never quite done it. Not quite, but I've been close. Very close. I think I was once 37 out of 60 free games. So almost there. But yeah, so going to MLB is finally previewing. MLB is back for a full 162 game span. Fans will be back there in the stadium this year, of course, at limited social distance capacity, of course, with COVID, but luckily this pandemic seems like it's coming to an end with the vaccines rolling out. And thankfully for everyone, that is the great news. But I would first like to talk about who I think is the favorites to win the World Series, and I think that's clear. My clear favorite, Vegas, and really asking any baseball fan would say the Dodgers, and really can't say much against that. It's hard to argue. They won the World Series last year, and then now they just had Trevor Bauer, who won the National League Cy Young last year, and one of the greatest individual pitching seasons of all time. Granted, a shorter season, small sample size, but in those games he started, let me tell you, he was tremendous. Virtually every single game. Unbelievable year, so it's hard to count them out. That's why I do think they'll come out of the NL West. I do think the Padres will put up a fight with their explosive offense, especially they got improved pitching staff this year, but I do think the Dodgers are clear favorites in the NL West. However, I do think the Padres will end up making the playoffs as a wild card team. Going over to NL Central, I got a lot to talk about in NL Central. I think this is probably going to be the most interesting matchup all year long in terms of competitiveness and really not knowing who's going to win the division. It's kind of hard to say. There's no really clear-cut favorite. And really, it's going to be a dogfight from really the start to finish. I think every team has a chance except the Pirates. Pirates are only just going to get worse with Josh Bell being gone. But it could be good in the future. They're just rebuilding. We'll give Pittsburgh a chance for a couple years. But I would say I do think the Cardinals will win the division, the National League Central. They got Nolan Arenado, which obviously we know he's not nearly as good in Colorado as I mean, he's not nearly as good outside of Colorado as he is in Colorado. Of course, he's played Colorado for the Rockies throughout all of his career until now, until the Cardinals got him this offseason. And you look at his splits, I mean, his numbers are unbelievable, but he also plays in Colorado, so you got to take that into account. And his numbers are not nearly as good in Colorado. However, still expect a good year out of him. Still expect batting average around 270, get around 25, 30 home runs, and I think that adds a lot of depth to their infield, and I just feel like they're going to have a very good year. And it's just, I don't know, even when they don't seem like they have the best roster, the Cardinals organization just always seems to get the best out of every one of their players, so it's hard to count against them in the NL Central this year. Especially the Cubs haven't really done anything to get that much significantly better this offseason. You know, they lost Schwarber, which I think could kind of hurt, and they probably would have had him, but fortunately, COVID has hurt a lot of payrolls for a lot of teams, so they weren't able to keep him. The Reds, I mean, still have a great rotation. They still got Gray and Castillo. They still got a chance to make the playoffs. But you got to know, they made the playoffs last year, and I have a lot to say about this. They made the playoffs last year, the Reds, and they had the lowest batting average in all, not just the MLB last year, in any team in the last 20 years. They batted 212 as a team. The next lowest in the last 20 years was 231. That just showed, like, 19 points. That is big. That is a huge difference. And granted, they did have a lot of home runs too. I mean, they were literally just like, their offense seemed like, all right, if they got a home run, that's literally the only reason they scored. They cannot manufacture. It's not like the Billy Hamilton days in the Reds where you just like gets on first base, just gets to third base all of a sudden. The next thing you know, all you need to do is just hit the ball in the outfield and he score. Like, that's not the day of the Reds anymore. It's just their offensive explosive team in terms of home runs, but it's really just home run or bust. Almost all of their players were like that. I mean, Suarez had one of the worst years of his career. Actually, in fact, he did have the worst year of his career. Castellanos had the worst year of his career. You know, Moustakas had the worst year of his career. Granted, he was hurt a lot of time. I mean, it's like all of these players I mentioned are in the 27 to 31 range. Every single one of those players. So there's no excuse that should not still be in the prime and still be hitting around 30 home runs a year, which they should, and they've been capable and been proven all-stars in the past. So there's really no excuse. I mean, Adam Zinter may be one of the worst hitting coaches in MLB if he can't get the best out of him. I'll give him credit. It was only his first year last year for the Reds, but we'll see. If he can't get the best out of those players this year, you know, I think management's going to need to make some decisions. And then Brewers, you know, they got Stanton, you know, not Stanton, sorry. They got Yelich, who is obviously one of the best players in all of baseball. And so, you know, with him, they could obviously lead a team, you know, kind of say as far as he takes it. And they have a great bullpen. Starting rotation is kind of iffy, but it's hard to count out the Brewers. Brewers just play tough games, and especially any late game situation, you know, they'll be right there. Going on NL East, I'll have the Mets, honestly, just edging out the Braves in a close division battle at the very end. But I think Lindor coming into the Mets this offseason, and now Syndergaard and Western starting pitchers healthy, I feel like that bodes well for the Mets this year. And I feel like, you know, obviously I know there's a lot of talk about Bauer going to New York, and I know it's disappointing for a lot of Mets fans, but I do think the addition of Lindor is really big, and I feel like they're going to take the next step. And I do think they'll reclaim the NL East. Braves will be right there. I'll not be surprised if the Braves make it. And that's why I do think the loser of those two teams would probably face off in the National League wildcard game against Padres. And that's why I do think it will be the Braves versus Padres in the National League wildcard game. With two of the most young players in the MLB, and Fernando Tatis Jr. Of course, you got Albies as well, but obviously Ronald Acuna Jr. for the Braves. So it should be would be a great matchup in a one-game playoff series. Expect a lot of offense. And going into the American League side, I'm going to start off American League East. It's going to pick the Yankees because it's kind of hard to pick against them. I mean, they got Stanton, they got Judge. I mean, don't even want to talk about the starting pitchers right now because it's just too good. It's like they're just too loaded. I mean, what are you gonna say? They're the Yankees. They're like the most expensive like team, not just in MLB, but like in all of like professional sports in North America. So, you know, it's just frustrating at times because there's no salary cap in baseball, which, you know, it's a petition MLB get a salary cap, so the Yankees will not just be dominant every year just because they can literally just pay for anyone. But either way, you gotta respect them enough. You know, they make good decisions. You know, and they got a great roster. So I think I'll send everyone to AL East. Going to AL Central, I do think the White Sox, they'll come out on top this year. I mean, they had the best record in all of the MLB with really just like a couple weeks to go. last season. Again, it was just a 60-game season, and they really just kind of fell off at the end, and they ended up losing 2 out of 3 to the Oakland A's in their series. But they're still a great team. I mean, Makata, like just insane depth, and obviously have a great explosive young offense, and I feel like they'll pull through this year. And going to the AL West, I got the Oakland Athletics. I'm not just saying that because I don't want to pick the Astros, although that's definitely part of it because obviously, you know, banging on the trash can, obviously. Not a good look for the MLB. But yeah, so I do think the Athletics are a very good team. You know, Billy Beane's genius, you know. Great movie. You guys know what I'm talking about. But, they constructed a very good roster. Obviously a very small market team, but they got a very deep roster, and they got a good pitching staff, and I do like them to win the American League West, and that leaves the 2 last final playoff spots, which should be for the American League wildcard game. And I do think that's going to be the Twins versus the Astros, and let's just see if the Twins could finally in their playoff drought this year. I mean, it has been now like 6 MLB, the last 6 playoff appearances, they have not won a single game. No, not that they haven't won a series. Not that they've been in a lot of series. They have not won a game. Which you got to know, it's not like, that's different if it's like NFL, because, a lot of teams in NFL might go on like playoff droughts where they just, like, the Bengals, for example. I made a playoff a few times in my life. They never seem to get a win. But, there's more excuse there because, it's only one game. Anything could happen. I mean, the Twins, besides the American League, I guess, wild card games now, it's only one game series. But besides that, they've been in a lot of other series, and they just lose, like, every game after game. It's just, if anything, it's more mental than anything, because they clearly have a great offense and great team, but it's just sad to see that, it almost seems like they're coming down to the end of their run, because they've been contenders for a while, a great team, but hopefully they could pull through. And if they do end up playing the Astros in the American League wildcard game, I'm sure most of America will be cheering for the Twins for several reasons. And that wraps up my show today. I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and I hope you guys got something out of this, and I hope you guys got some tips to fill out March Madness brackets this year. If you guys get those $1 billion from Warren Buffett, please remember me and the picks that I helped you guys pick. But just joking, of course. You guys can do whatever you want with your $1 billion, But yeah, it's gonna be a great time. Very excited. March Madness finally back. Gonna be a good tournament. Really an open field because none of the blue buds are really in it. Duke's not in it. North Carolina's not in it, but not. They're like an 8 seed, right? Yeah, 8 seed versus Wisconsin, and Wisconsin 9 seed in their region. So nothing legit. Kentucky's not in it. Michigan State's in it as like a play-in game. So it's like it's just interesting. It's gonna be a fun year because it's gonna be an open field, and I really feel like this bodes well with Gonzaga, because Gonzaga's been like dominant. Really since my whole lifetime, exactly since Mark Few took over in 1999. They've never really been able to break through, but if it would be one year they would break through, I think it bodes well that a lot of the other blue bud teams are not in it. So yeah, it should be a good tournament regardless, though. You never know who's going to win it. You never know who's going to make it deep one. It's obviously going to be surprise teams like there are every year. So it should be exciting. MLB season finally right around the corner, too. So a lot of good things to look forward to. Sports, best time of the year. NBA season, starting back up again, obviously, after the All-Star break. So, it's going to be exciting. Good several weeks ahead of us in sports, everyone. And, I look forward to hearing you guys' brackets, and until next time, this is Will Thompson. Have a good one.